Hatred comes in many forms. Sometimes it is overt and violent. Sometimes it is buried under a layer of sophistication. Europe specializes in this. They defended colonialism as a greater good, racism as God's command, and now Islamophobia as a matter of neutrality. Let me explain. The European Union's top court has come out with a controversial ruling. What was it about? Wearing religious symbols in the workplace. The case was filed by two Muslim women from Germany. One worked at a child care home in Hamburg, the other as a cashier at a drugstore. Both women were fired from their job. Why? Because they wore headscarves to work. Not a full veil, but the hijab, which is a religious head covering. So these women approached courts in Germany. Their case was shifted to Europe's top court in Luxembourg. The court's job was simple. Decide between two freedoms, a Muslim woman's freedom of religious expression and a business owner's freedom to protect neutrality. That is, to keep religion out of their shops. The court sided with the businesses, and this was the verdict. European companies can now ban women from wearing the hijab to work. And the ruling applies to all religious symbols, not just the hijab. But the target, it seems, is clear. Europe does not have a problem with people wearing the cross or the Jewish kippah. It's always the hijab that gets Europe riled up. So is this really about neutrality? And what does neutrality even mean here? Businesses cannot strip their employees of their identity. These are human beings, they're not robots or clones. And who decides what is neutral? According to the court, that is up to business owners. They must show a legitimate reason for banning the hijab, like complaints from customers or financial losses. Now, this is a classic slippery slope. The most powerful court in Europe nursing the ego and insecurity of bigoted shoppers. What's next? A uniform accent? A uniform skin color? That's called racism, by the way. Europe calls itself a champion of separating church and state. It was supposed to be about non-interference. But now the European state is marching into the church. It is toppling religious symbols and banning religious clothing. The mighty Europe, consumed by fears of a diverse society. Doesn't stop them from lecturing others, though. This ban on the hijab is a case of layered discrimination. First, the hatred towards Muslims. And second, the urge to control what women wear. Think about it. A hijab is a piece of clothing. Yes, it has a religious meaning, but that's not for the state to decide. Wearing or not wearing a hijab is a personal choice. It is part of a personal identity. Governments and courts cannot make that choice for you. They shouldn't, at least not in a democracy. So why not let women be? Why not let them decide for themselves? You see, in Europe, the hijab has been politicized. Shops are fine with baseball caps. They're fine with abusive t-shirts. They're fine with political t-shirts, but they have a problem with hijabs. For a woman, a hijab could be part of her identity, political, social, cultural, but Europe sees it only as a religious symbol, a symbol to be stamped out from public domain. All this talk of neutrality is just to hide the discrimination. Millions of women in Europe now face a difficult and unfair choice. Abandon the hijab or abandon the job. And that's not a choice that anyone should be forced to make. Rights groups across Europe have opposed this ruling. Here's what an anti-racism campaigner had to say. Europe's obsession with Muslim women's clothing choices, and specifically the hijab, is entwined with Islamophobia, racism, and misogyny. Old habits die hard. For Europe, racism and misogyny are old habits. This time they have packaged it under a new name. They call it neutrality, where everyone is white, Christian, and preferably male. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.